Hi, everybody. Just trying to adjust everything. This is 1,121 days since Richard vanished from the barracks there at Fort Bliss in El Paso, Texas. So much is going on in the news, but there's so much going on in Richard's case, and it's just remarkable the names that are popping up through this pile of intel that we have received, and we have been going over very carefully. The first thing that we did is just kind of read through it, get a sense of its importance. What would be something that would really impact our son's case, and then to look through and get the names out. The names, the several names. There's so many names. And then you have to go through and see if those names are corroborated with known documents and um, facts that, we hope facts that are out there. There's so much forgery, there's so much fraud that you have to have several different pieces. Let me go on to Facebook to make sure I'm on, if I'm on live. Because I know it's Sunday, but we have to do this. And there's so much to address. Oh, there I am. Okay. Okay, um, so we've been going over the names, and of course we released Edwin Sishane. I hope I'm saying his name right. Um, who has a Kenyan origin. Um, was a soldier there at Fort Bliss. Great runner. Um, and we're just wanting to reach out to him. We do have information in the intel given to us that Judge Robert Shook, and we wrote him for an open records for the warrants, for the probable causes. We have not, there has been no communication. And, I'm not happy to say that, um, publicly, because, um, you know, those that are implicated in this case would probably be very happy that Judge Robert Shook is not even responding to our open records requests, which I think is criminal, absolutely criminal. But I have to tell the vast public out there the truth that, if we have questions about information floating around, meaning arrests, um, even somebody that confessed to the murder of Richard, the three autopsy reports, the probable cause affidavit, and the warrant that doesn't seem to exist. There's no warrant that seems to exist for the Fugitive Apprehension Unit out of the Sarasota Sheriff's Department to unlawfully search our home with an assault team. Um, so you would think that a judge would want to answer those really important questions with many more, but we haven't gotten those answers. And so that puts the alarm bells, turns the alarm bells on even more so. And so when we get intel saying that he issued a gag order, okay, that he issued a gag order, we'll be letting you know more about that, about the arrests that we have been told were were made with warrants coming out of Judge Robert Shook's uh, involvement in this case, and the other uh, warrants to uh, for phone dumps and vehicles and addresses, search addresses, things like this. So, there are good people out there that see what is going on, the injustice, and that our law enforcement agencies have now been weaponized against us and used to cover up criminals instead of to just say, "Where's Richard?" Do a proper investigation, let the public know that a proper investigation happened, and, uh, and answer these questions officially, right? But because they don't want to put their names out there anymore, they don't want to answer questions officially, they don't want to answer open records requests. Um, it really tells you that we have become like our our agencies and institutions have now been are being used to support the criminals. And that corroborates what I've been saying about the generals that are in charge of our military, the generals and the admirals, that they are not any longer serving the American people. I think the spigot needs to be turned off. And what I mean about the spigot is meaning all funding, because they work for us and they have breached their covenant with us. And we shouldn't have to be paying for them to be weaponized against us. And not just against us, but against our service members, because our service members are being used as pawns. They're being um, they're being groomed into these sex cults. Being deployed into areas to destroy um, uh, whatever the enemy wants destroyed, not anything to help the United States, the people of the United States. And our volunteer sons and daughters have suffered greatly for a long time with this stuff going on. And that's why our levels of PTSD are so high. That's why our suicides are so high. That's why the rapes and the murders and the violence in our military ranks is so high. That's why the drug use is so high. That's why alcohol abuse is so high. And that's why the family dynamics of military families is so difficult because of all of these problems. And I haven't even touched on the political ideology that is being um, uh, put into the military against the United States, against family, against God, so against God and country. And, it's just very, very clear after 3 years, after 1,121 days, that they're up to no good. And if they're up to no good, and we are paying them, why should we pay them? We need to turn off the spigot, and we need to absolutely retrench when it comes to our national defense, the defense of our land and our country, the defense of our Constitution. It's very, very clear. And so, with all of that thinking, because, I did go, Team Fire and Richard Halliday was there at January 6th. We are Constitution booklet holders. They made fun of us with that. They called us domestic terrorists for going there and wanting to hand out prayer candles for our son, for, to get answers, to get in front of media, since the media seems to have had a gag order put on them too. Um, but we're getting word that Judge Shook put out a gag order, um, and we're going to try to get to the bottom of that. But through the paperwork, and I don't want to lessen all of the information that we have been putting out lately. And one of those things is, of course, the notarized criminal complaint confession affidavit of Leilani Hart that was submitted to the CID, that was accepted, and then submitted to the FBI and accepted. And we have the CID and the FBI case numbers for that notarized criminal complaint affidavit by Leilani Hart against her family, okay? Against her family. And we have many more documents that are, seems to be hers. But the notarized, because we talked to the notary public, he absolutely confirmed that she was indeed the signer, because we've put in a complaint of some documents that were so-called notarized, but we have questions that it was a fraud, that the notary committed fraud. We put in a complaint about that because there's so much forgery and fraud going on with these signatures. And so, but that's not the case with the notarized criminal complaint confession, because she implicates herself, affidavit of Leilani Hart that was accepted by the CID and the FBI, and we have the numbers. Now, what does that mean? Because, um, let me get here to Facebook online, because I had someone that is a notary and brought up very good statements. And so I tried, I guess she turned off the ability for me to respond, but I just posted it up, the response, because I think this is very, very Anne-Marie Daughtry. So I wanted to respond to her. She seems to be a notary public, um, and I needed to absolutely, maybe she doesn't have the whole story here, but the notarized criminal complaint confession affidavit of Leilani Hart implicates her family in incestuous relationship, okay? Implicates them in a rape of a 7-year-old in her master bedroom. That happens to be her friend's child. You know, I don't get, okay, let's not go there. With a 3-year-old there watching, or being present somehow in the living room. I don't know. Um, she also implicates her family, her husband, of purchasing weapons illegally and possessing them illegally and using those to threaten her with, to threaten her life. And she also implicates him in threatening her immigration status with her life. Okay, um, if he's not allowed to continue in his child pornography sex cult, and keep the family incestuous and keep raping children's friends, then her immigration status is at risk, and he threatens her with her life during the night while she's sleeping. It's easy as that. That's what she's saying. That's what's in this accepted criminal complaint that's notarized but accepted by the CID and the FBI. And what that does is, and I think I put it up here. Let's see if it is here. Um, yeah. So I wrote it and I put it up, and I'm reading what I wrote. because it's very, very important for people to understand that this document, okay, this document that has a CID case number, that has an FBI case number, and that in itself, that we have it, okay, that I'm in possession of the CID case number and the FBI case number of Leilani Hart's notarized criminal complaint affidavit, that's a confession, is absolutely shocking, because who has case numbers? So that in itself shows collusion, or knowing, well, uh, we have it over and over again that she was having an affair with Special Agent Tavita Nusa, who has lost his badge. Okay, now that's hard to do, to lose your badge, but he lost his badge, and we know that for a fact. And you know why? Because he gave her the CID and FBI number. I don't know. I don't know. That's just my question. But we can't downplay this affidavit that was accepted by the CID and the FBI enough. We cannot downplay it. And I don't know, it's so vile and vulgar. You have to pray before you read it. You have to pray during you read it. You have to pray after you read it. And it pollutes you. And so you have to continue to pray to be, unpolluted by this vile and vulgar language, these vile and vulgar confession, this vile and vulgar complaints, that are in this accepted, notarized CID and FBI um, affidavit, case. And when you wrap your head around it, I believe it's been taken down, but it's like toothpaste. It's already out there. So it's okay. People have probably snapshotted it or whatever. Um, but we put it up there. And the reason why we put it up there is because we can't downplay it enough. This is information that the CID and the FBI have had, and it is part of Richard's file. It is part of Richard's file. So why would they have this as part of Richard's file? Um, you know, it really, we've been begging for information for the CPS complaints, the Child Protective Service complaints, the CID complaints, now the Park University complaints. Okay, we've asked why can't the president of Park University speak with us, answer our emails, expedite our son's academic records to us? Okay, now we have to write them back and say what complaints was Richard making. And Anna Whitehead would know that, because Anna Whitehead's in charge of the campus there on Fort Bliss for Park University. Why can't she? We wrote her. Why can't she write us? Why can't she tell us what Richard complained about? And I think there's criminal activity there. Okay? Because why aren't they responding? Unless they're trying to hide something. And maybe it could be as simple as Anna Whitehead did not turn in the criminal complaints that Richard was making to the command there at Fort Bliss, to the DES. Maybe because what we're hearing through our intel is that it involved the DES himself. Okay? We know we have corroborated with lots of information that the faculty, including criminal activity, faculty in Park University on Fort Bliss was not becoming faculty members or teachers or professors. They were engaged in activities that they should lose their position. Okay? And this includes Thomas Kane. This includes Thomas Kane, which is absolutely, wrap your head around that one, because Thomas Kane himself, that's implicated in not acting like he should as a faculty member, is saying that Fort Bliss is, the command is operating outside of the law, and that they acted outside of the law when it comes to banning our uh, our key witness, or one of our key witnesses, from accessing Fort Bliss and giving information and finding out information in the forced disappearance and murder of Richard Halliday, PFC Richard Halliday, a member of Fort Bliss, right? One of Major General Eisenhower's command, one of his soldiers, right? One of his soldiers. And that they banned one of our key witnesses from accessing Fort Bliss without due process, without a packet, without notification, so that he could also stick up for himself, defend himself in whatever allegations were against him. And he was not afforded the opportunity of self-defense. And there was no investigation. And so, it's kind of like what KTEP does, or El Paso Matters, or Miss Kacherga. They just put out anything without any kind of packet, without any kind of investigation. In my estimation, they're not investigative reporters. They're not award winning, even though they're award winning, but I don't think the awards really hold much weight compared to what kind of work that I've seen coming out of there, because where is the coverage from Richard? So maybe I'm one of those scorned mothers that would like to know what happened to my son, and would like the media, who we pay, because this is a public media, right? They get privileges. They don't have to pay taxes. They get tax-free status. And I would like to see them helping my son. I would like to see them helping to discover, good, bad, ugly, whatever it is, what happened to Richard. But, they haven't done that. And I think that's disgraceful. And of course, I'm advocating for my son. I love my son. I'm going to advocate him. So I feel like it's totally disgraceful, unconscionable, the level of criminality that even the media is displaying in our son's case. I will say that right out there. And now none of this could happen without the generals participating in this disgrace, right? They're participating in it because they have at their fingertips also our money, also the PAO, also all of what we give them, which is a lot. It is a lot. And they have no interest but to gag, because don't forget, Judge Robert Shook is a colonel, right? So all they want to do is gag. They don't want to find out publicly what happened to Richard. That's a disgrace. Because they want to protect, manipulate. I think there's documents that are manipulated because we haven't been afforded the overview of what's going on in our son's case. And so we haven't been afforded, like our key witness, due process or the chance to defend, the chance to be advocates for our son, to see what they have claimed in his medical status, his mental health status. I would like to see. I would like to know. Because that would be coming out of the VA. Why? Why is it coming out of the VA? That raises flags too. Okay, he's missing. Maybe that would come out of the VA. But, to me, it would give it gives me a signal that they have designated him deceased. Okay, that's what that does. And the way that our intel is telling us that Judge Robert Shook um, was involved with the VA gives us um, a concern that our son was definitely designated deceased. Okay. And so he gave a lot of weight, it seems, apparently. Okay. This is what we're trying to ask the JAG office, what we're trying to ask from Colonel Judge Robert Shook. We want the open records. We want to see how they dealt with the VA because, um, okay, here it is. Because we have been told that a the counselor, the counselor assigned to Richard's case, or the VA employee assigned to Richard's case, to be the point of contact with the CID, right? The law enforcement was, now this is what we're getting that we want, and this is why we're reaching out to this person, because this person, unless she's been part of this gag order, this person can come out and say yay or nay very quickly in a matter of minutes, in a matter of hours, okay, give it a couple days, right? So Lysa Lennon Williams, okay, this is Leilani, one of the names that Leilani Hart gave out in these packets of paper that are attributed to her. So even Leilani Hart can come forward and say, oh, that might be forgery. That might be false information. Um, you know, we would like to know, because this is so shocking. Because what is being said is that there's been a long-term affair between James Hart and Lysa Lennon Williams. Now, I'm not saying that. I'm saying the intel is saying that. And the intel needs to stop if they're telling lies, right? Or, and that's why we're reaching out to Lysa Lennon Williams. That's why we wanted to reach out to Edwin Sishane. I hope I'm saying his name right. So absolutely, we're trying to reach out because let me tell you, Edwin knows the Harts very well. He knows them so well that he wrote a character witness of his long-term history with Leilani Hart. Okay? So that's why we're reaching out, and how he has very close, this is what we're being told, he knows a lot about this case. Okay? He knows a lot about this case. So that's why we're reaching out. So we have so many fronts here. See, we have this JAG front, we have the CID front, we have the VA front, we have the MP front, we have the FBI front, we have the CID front. Maybe I said that twice. We have Park University front, we have the DES front, we have the CYS front, we have the CPS front. I mean, we have people that we will be putting out there, until it all gets put together. Because, see, lies can't be sustained. The truth will come out. It comes out. No matter how many dollars from us that they use fraudulently, right, to cover this up, no matter how much funding they use to fraudulently use that money to cover this up, which I think is criminal, the truth will still come out. And that's just the way it is. And that's why we just keep on going. And when they say, well, you have to be your own media, okay, you have to be the chief of the investigation into your son's forced disappearance and murder. Okay, you have to be um, the one that goes through the vile and vulgar um, intel that's coming in, and you're the one that has to take the chance, because we're not going to give you witness protection, we're not going to give you any kind of protection, just call 911. You're going to have to be the one that risks your life when you're investigating your son's forced disappearance and murder. You're going to have to be the one that defends the Constitution, because the generals are too busy with trying to get their CEOs, jobs locked down after they retire or whatever. Um, and I sound a little bit there, and that was a little cheap shot, but they're criminal and they've committed crimes against humanity. And I'm very glad that Texas has the death penalty, because I think that needs to be on the table, because these crimes are just that serious. The domino effects. Look, we have in this information that this incest, that this child pedophilia in the Hart family is generational, okay, and far reaching. And that's because law enforcement didn't do anything about it. That's because people didn't speak up and do anything about it. That needed to be nipped in the bud. Nipped in the bud. And I think so many children from the Hart family would be totally different people, more functional citizens, not perpetrators, not predators, as Leilani Hart claims. So back to Lysa Lennon Williams. Um, the what Leilani claims is that she's a co-worker of James Hart. James Hart has a very, very important job. He's beside our very vulnerable young soldiers day in and day out, and he being employed with the VA, he plays a big part in the deciding factor of what kind of um, disability that they get, right? What they get, which is a very powerful position too. How can, if this is right, if this CID FBI criminal complaint that was accepted by them keeps a pedophile, an incestuous pedophile, that likes child pornography, that thinks it's no problem to commit adultery, no problem, because Dallas Hart was telling me it's no problem. Oh, yeah, my dad, he has these two young women. Um, you can't blame him. The divorce is taking long. No, no, no. He's still married. He's still married, and he's an employee of the Veterans Affairs. He no. Uh, See, this is the grooming. This is the grooming. This is the lack of leadership. This is the lack of the teaching of loyalty, what that means. This is the teaching um, of a false ideology, because leadership is respect, leadership is loyalty, leadership is um, honor and integrity and personal courage and, selfless service. You know, just because you're have a desire does not give you the right to fulfill your desire. If that's the case, we are in big, big trouble if there is no discipline in our culture. Our families will totally fall apart. Our children will totally be basket cases. There will be no future. There will be no progress. Kiss the star forts goodbye, right? And what I mean, I've been um, made fun of a little bit because I love star forts. I love the beautiful architecture that a disciplined society of law and order can create and be proud of, and that benefits generations to come. I love that. I love that because the knowledge, the education, the talents, the absolute talents, and the know how that it takes to create beautiful architecture and the absolute happiness that comes from that and that benefits generation after generation is something to be celebrated and not made fun of. And I think one of the greatest architectures in the world are star forts. I mean, our Statue of Liberty stands on a star fort. We have star forts going all up and down our coasts. And for me to mention that, to say this is what our military engineers, this is what our generals should more focus on instead of the destruction. I was there in Dresden um, when they were picking the rocks out of the Frauenkirche that was so heavily bombed during World War II. Um, and they were picking it apart because they had to rebuild it. Well, and it was fantastic, and I even gave money to the rebuilding of it. But why did it have to be rebuilt? It was destroyed. And that took energy and time and resources that could have been building other things. And if you've never read The Broken Window Fallacy, read that. It's super important because we could have so many more Frauenkirches, so many more unbelievable bridges and unbelievable roadways and railways and um, all kinds of different things. But because we are hell bent on paying for our military to destroy and destroy and destroy, when absolutely that's illegal in the Bible, um, it's no wonder that we have so many murders within the ranks and undisciplined um, actions that Leilani Hart is laying out in her confession. And part of that is this um, infidelity with James Hart and Lysa Lennon Williams. And that's why I had to reach out to Lysa Lennon Williams, because she has the right to know what is being said about her. And she has the right to get notified and have an opportunity to defend herself. And that's why we're putting out this notice, because it directly complicates Richard's case. Because if there's truth that James Hart was having an affair with Lysa Lennon Williams, paying for her bills, paying some of her bills. This is what was said. This is not me. Paying some of her bills, Leilani says paying for a down payment on Lisa's daughter's home, paying for some kind of savings for the grandkids. If that, if that's true that that is going on, and Lysa Lennon Williams is the point of contact for the CID in Richard's case for his VA file, including medical and mental health reports, then this is really concerning because we have that she was called in by Judge Robert Shook for her witness testimony, and that she worked together with law enforcement on Richard's case. And, this is a huge conflict of interest if this is true. And so I'm hoping that it's not. But, what goes through my mind is, oh my gosh, if this is true, there could be forgery, there could be fraud, there could be manipulation of the files, there could be a manipulation of Richard's investigation into, it could be a cover up. I mean, so many things. That was my brain response to this. And so, since I'm not allowed to, get a little, oh my gosh, you have to calm down. You have to stay on the straight and narrow after all of the vile and vulgar things, after these conflicts of interest. I mean, conflicts of interest in the CID, conflicts of interest in the VA, conflicts of interest in the CPS, conflicts of interest in the CYS, conflicts of interest in Park University, conflicts of interest in the security, the safety and security of Fort Bliss, that office, the DES, conflicts of interest within the military police, conflicts of interest going into the AUSAs, to this attorney that we have, this attorney that has a conflict of interest, and that we know who his sister is. And that's a conflict of interest also. And it all seems to have a common denominator of power. And that's why people are so afraid, because this power could actually, as simple as this, I could kill you, could actually do harm to people and get away with it because they have judges in their pocket and attorneys in their pocket and law enforcement in their pocket and the military leadership in their pocket. That's what it's looking like to us. And so, look, we need Park University's cooperation in this, like we cooperated with the assault unit that didn't even have a warrant. The fugitive, they were beautiful, but they're very intimidating, because that's why they were beautiful, because you want an assault team that's in a fugitive apprehension unit to be 6'8", to be 6'8", and wearing full battle gear and, sneaking around your house and, being intimidating. You want them to be that way. And we cooperated with them. But to find out they didn't do it right because they didn't have a warrant, which is the defense, they should be defending our Constitution. That's why we pay them. So it's just one breach of security after another, one breach of oath after the other, one breach of duty after the other. And here we are 3 years in, and it should never have taken this long. We were never afforded an early start on the investigation of our son because they didn't even call us. That is the breach of duty, the breach of service. Why should we pay them? See, that's the question we have to answer. If we don't want, and or even think about, if we don't want other families to go through this. I don't want any other family to have to go through this. And I think a good way to stop it is to close down that spigot, which means to inactivate a large part of our government because they can't function without the army. They cannot function without the army lockstepping to what they want because none of this stuff could have happened without the army lockstepping and agreeing to it. All through history, no king can be king without their knights, right? Without power behind them. And so all this criminality, to me, this is my opinion, could be, the judges' criminalities, all these law enforcement problems, all of the political problems, all of, uh, just unjust actions going on in our government and society could all be thwarted by generals and admirals standing firm on their faith and their oath to defend the Constitution. All of it. I truly believe that. Because they have the weapons. They have the grunts, the boots. They have the drones. They have the intelligence. They've got it. And so what I'm telling you is that none of this could have happened with Richard. We have the special agent, Veltri, like she's supposed to be this great forensic person. She hasn't even visited Fort Bliss. She hasn't even visited the crime scene. How can you be a forensic specialist? How can you even judge? I shouldn't say judge, but investigate this case without going to Fort Bliss. I mean, it's crazy. And saying there's no leads, and there's so many leads. I'm giving her one right now. Senior Special Agent Jessica Veltri. Look into Leilani Hart's criminal complaint affidavit and her many writings that call out Edwin Sissonet and Lysa Lennon Williams and others. But Lysa Lennon Williams, the reason why we decided to put out Edwin's name and now Lysa is because they are directly involved, according to the information that we have, to Richard's case. Just like the notarized criminal complaint affidavit that was accepted by the CID and FBI, and we have the case numbers for that. They are absolutely involved in our son's case. That confession is involved in our son's case, and Edwin seems to be, and that's why I want him to be able to defend himself, involved in our son's case. And Lysa Lennon Williams seems to be absolutely involved in our son's case, and I want to give her a chance to defend herself and, or at least help. Or at least help. You know? help. Why is everybody, um, I shouldn't say everybody, why is it in these agencies lockstepping to orders that defend pedophilia, that defend incest, that defend illegal weapons purchasing and possession, and being able to, just the fact that a husband would threaten his wife with her immigration status and with, I'll kill you at night, put a gun to your head and you'll never know what happens, is as simple as that. I mean, Lonnie Hart actually said that James Hart said that to her. That is, why do people like Kacherga, like the media, not want to know what happened? Why don't they want to know the truth? And why is this absolutely connected to Richard Halliday's forced disappearance and murder? And why isn't the media up in arms about Judge Robert Shook? Why aren't they up in arms about Veronica Escobar's silence in this case? Absolute silence. Doesn't she care about children? Doesn't she care about the military? Doesn't she care about families? Doesn't she care about justice? Veronica Escobar is, wow. Wow. She sold out to somebody. I can tell you that right now. She sold out to someone, and the spigot on her needs to be turned off. Please do not vote for her. Oh my goodness. Please do not vote for William Timmons. Please do not vote for Lindsey Graham. I can tell you right now. And, I'm always trying to give these people a chance. And it took like a year before I even wanted to call out anyone. And let me tell you, it only took like a week to understand that the Army was up to no good. Okay? That first Hell Week, we absolutely knew that the Army was up to no good. But we worked with them. We waited and waited. And, sometimes I kick myself. Because I never in my wildest dreams thought that they would betray us this bad. And they were this evil. And they are just that bad and that evil. In my opinion, from what has gone on in our son's case. Because we were absolutely denied the fact that Richard was missing, denied the fact from the mouths of the Army that have an obligation to care for our son, denied the fact that he was a whistleblower. We had to find that out. And that he is part of Park University and an intern at the CID. Y'all, wrap your head around that one. And what about his car? I haven't talked about that much. There are irregularities with his vehicle. There are irregularities with his phone, with his computer, with the information. There are irregularities with the whole investigation into Richard that seems to reach out to this attorney. That forgery and fraud has been used continuously in this case, and that those crimes have been perpetrated against Richard, but also our family. And I don't want this to happen to anybody else. Day in, day out, to unveil this level of criminality. And it's huge. So think about this VA. Oh yeah, I I'm your lover in CID, so I can get your case to the CID. I can get your case number and I can get your FBI number. And yeah, I can manipulate the file and I can get you Richard's file and we can manipulate surveillance footage because, my good friend Tom Kane, he's in control of the surveillance footage and he has conflicts of interest with Park University. And oh, yeah, he has. Um, conflicts of interest with CPS and he has conflicts of interest with CYS. He has conflicts of interest um with Richard. And then you have, oh yeah, by the way, the VA has conflicts of interest. Hey, yeah, I can be the point of contact and I have access to everything, access to all the files. I can, when you have access like that, there has to be oversight. And nobody wants to touch this case because the real oversight is for the criminals. You deep, you dig deep enough to see our crime, we're going to retaliate. That's exactly what seems to have happened with Richard. You dig enough, you want to know what happened to your son, well, we're going to retaliate. And that's what's happened with us. That's why we had to put in our criminal complaint to say we have been threatened. We have been harassed. So, where do these young service members go? They can't go to the MPs. They can't go to CPS. They can't go to Park University. They can't go to the DES, the chief of security of Fort Bliss. They can't go to the VA. They can't go because let me tell you, the VA thing, the allegations that Lonnie puts on her husband at the VA will blow you away. Talk about vile and vulgar. All this sex stuff is vile and vulgar. But the impersonation of people, the stealing of people's identities, the the breach of your oath and the loyalty that's expected from you, the breach of all of that, to me is just as vile and vulgar. To take advantage of our young service members, we know that our son's social security number has been breached. We know. So if Lilani is right, we know where that came from. And she says many other service members have been used and abused. And maybe Richard didn't want that. He didn't want he didn't sign up to serve in the United States Army to be groomed into sex cults, to be assaulted, to give up his Christian um, ideology and his Christian faith and put up with children being raped at the age of 7, children being trafficked, child porn being airdropped onto phones in the barracks and work areas or whatever from these servers that are probably paid for by taxpayers' money. That's not why he joined the military. He didn't join the military to be subject to forced health care or, um, PTSD, forced PTSD. Look at what the retaliation against him was. Absolutely appalling. And that comes from Clem Coward. And the protection of Clem Coward is appalling. Because first and foremost, the protection should be to our volunteer sons and daughters that are these young, impressionable, junior enlisted. That's who needs to be protected, not our seasoned warfighters. They need to be protected too. I'm not saying they're not. But why is it that these junior enlisted, if they're not locking step to the grooming and the Vanity Fair that is not supposed to be in our military, then they get to be the scapegoats of all this criminal activity that's happening. No wonder it's growing so much. No wonder the crime is growing so much at the higher levels. Because they could just abuse and use our junior enlisted. I mean, don't forget that Jay Paulin said it. He said, "Is Richard's life more valuable than my own?" He said that. It might not be an exact quote, but it's in my head that he said that in his vile and vulgar, abusive statements, alleging that Richard's life is not worth more than his own. I think that was absolutely criminal and disgusting. And I think Captain David Park's letter, absolutely setup job. A CYA job. Because the truth is coming out and it shows how criminal they are. For not telling us. We know that the IG were all over the barracks because of Halliday. We know that they retaliated because he didn't want to participate in the Vanity Fair. We know it. I mean, my goodness, he wanted to get into law enforcement. That's why it was, oh, ma'am, you know that your son was an atheist. Okay, whatever. Did you find him? Find him. What's your plan to find him? Ma'am, you know that he was doing criminal things. Okay, whatever. What's your plan to find him? What's your plan to find him? Find him. And then you can judge him. Ma'am, we already judged him. We already judged him. Really? So that's your plan. CYA. That's the plan. not to tell us that he was a whistleblower, not to tell us that he, um, hey Soto, why didn't you tell us he was an intern in the CID? Huh? There's only like 7 people in there. Anyway, um, thank you all for listening to this day in and day out. And this whole VA thing, um, if you're out there and you're working at somewhere on Fort Bliss and you know information, we still have a $150,000 reward for credible information leading to finding Richard. And, or maybe you just want to help for the sake of our country, for the sake of Fort Bliss, for the sake of El Paso, for the sake of Juarez, for the sake of, just to glorify God, just to do that. Um, our number is 941-677-0060, and you can leave a message, you can call, and we really appreciate it. And for everybody, Anicia, thank you so much. Lanny, thank you so much. Thank you for the prayer. Someone knows something. Absolutely, they know. Absolutely, because the cover up is so, it's so out there now that you can see that they knew a lot. And I think Edwin knows a lot, and I think, well, let's give them a chance to respond. But I know that Edwin knows a lot because we have it in his writing, um, his signature, that he, was very close to them, very close to the Hart family. So he could definitely tell us a lot. So pray for them. Pray that he will come forward. And we really appreciate you coming on a Sunday night. Rob says, don't forget to tell him we love you. We love you for sticking with us. And we will be back tomorrow. God bless.